there's a group of fans out there that are already kind of, out on DQ, ready to move on. He's getting out there. His season last year wasn't, I don't think, up to his normal standards, but his normal standards are pretty high, and he still plays at a pretty good level. The other thing with Daquan Jones is that at the moment, he is still the Bills' best run defender. So if you want to put Jordan Phillips on the team for Daquan Jones, then Big Phil better be able to stop the run. And look, Jordan Phillips can do a number of things, but stopping the run in particular is not his strength. So you're not, if you're putting Jordan Phillips on the team to replace Daquan Jones, well, then someone else has got to suddenly be your number one first and second down one tech or nose tackle. And Deion Walker could be that guy. It's one of the reasons why the Bills drafted him. But Deion Walker's preseason has been weird in that he's looked really good rushing the passer. I mean, for a man that monstrous, he's got some wiggle to him. But in addition, for a man that monstrous, he gets pushed around way too much in the run game. So if Jordan Phillips is coming onto this team to replace Daquan Jones, to me, that opens up a big hole when it comes to how you want to stop the run with those guys in the middle. Ed Oliver's fine. He can do everything. But you don't really have that elite one tech, nose tackle, run stopper. So I would not expect Daquan Jones to be the man on the way out with Jordan Phillips coming in. So that moves us to Dwayne Carter, last year's third-round pick, who didn't play a whole lot last year, was inactive for the playoffs, which is a pretty strong indictment of the season he had. But when he was out there, he made plays. I mean, he had multiple tackles for a loss against the Eagles. Spots where he got opportunities, he seemed to be productive. He's a Duke grad, smart guy, love talking with him. Got to figure he's exactly the type of player that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane love to have. So he fits the intangible mold. He's made plays when he's out there. Yeah, I think he's probably been disappointing for his draft status, a third-round pick. But we had Brandon Beane on Bills Kickoff Live Saturday night before the Bucs game, defending Cole Bishop and talking about why, we really haven't seen the full Cole Bishop. He referred to the touchdown play that Bishop was primarily, it seemed like, responsible for against the Bears the week before, and said things about like, well, you got to know what the leverage is, and that's a hard to play. Look, we all saw what happened. Okay, you don't need to be a football savant to understand that Cole Bishop probably didn't do the right thing on that Bears touchdown. And yet there's Brandon Beane poo-pooing it. The leverage was fine. I mean, I get there's football explanations for a lot of things. And there's good reason to believe that, maybe Cole Bishop wasn't as terrible as it looked on the play. But if you're Brandon Beane, almost going out of your way to defend a guy that you took round 2 the year before, to spin it back to the Phillips conversation, why are you moving on from the guy you took 35 picks later in Dwayne Carter, a guy who, he might not be great or have lived up to the draft slot. He's made more plays in the NFL than Cole Bishop has. So if the GM is going to go really work hard at telling you that the second round pick from last year is going to be fine, everything's heading the right direction, it doesn't make sense for him to turn around and then trade away the third round pick from that same draft when he's been, I think, inarguably a better player so far. So, again, I don't know why Jordan Phillips is on the team, but it doesn't seem like replacing Dwayne Carter is the likely avenue, even though I think Jordan Phillips and Dwayne Carter's game are similar enough that could work. Carter, I think, is a better run defender. So there might be a world where, if you want to go back to the Daquan Jones argument, if they're moving on from Daquan Jones and they make Carter your number one player on first and second down, I could see it, but I wouldn't be super confident about the Bills' success rate in that situation. So if it's not the 2 rookies that were drafted this year, if it's not Ed Oliver, if it's not Daquan Jones, if it's not Dwayne Carter, who's left for Jordan Phillips to replace? Well, there is Larry Ogunjobi. And now look, Larry Ogunjobi, we know he's got the 6-game suspension. His game and Jordan Phillips' game do match up pretty well. I mean, they're both, I think, moderately good against the run and the pass. Some defensive tackles are great pass rushers. Some are good against the run. I think Ogunjobi can do a little bit of both, might lean a little better as a pass rusher. I think Jordan Phillips can do a little bit of both, might lean a little bit better as a pass rusher. Ogunjobi's a little more of a 3-tech, so out further to the outside, where like Ed Oliver plays. But their games are interchangeable enough that you can make the argument that Ogunjobi and Phillips are, I don't want to say, the same exact player, but if you wanted to say Jordan Phillips is in for Larry Ogunjobi, I think that's a seamless enough transition that it makes some sense. I want to look this up. Larry Ogunjobi, 6'3", 305. Phillips is like 6'7", bigger. So not exactly the same size either. You get a little bit bigger guy with Phillips. Here's the thing about Ogunjobi and why I kind of land on this maybe being the most likely scenario for why Jordan Phillips is in Buffalo. Ogunjobi had a very quiet camp. Not noticeable at all. Like I said, he and Jordan Phillips, fairly similar games, attributes, things they do well, ways they would fit into a defensive line. And of course, more importantly, no matter what you think of who's the better player between Phillips and Ogunjobi, only one of the two guys are going to be available the first 6 weeks of the year. And that's Jordan Phillips, who does not have a suspension, at least as far as we know. So I can see a world where the Bills decide, hey, we have Larry Ogunjobi, who hasn't really impressed much. We have all these other defensive tackles we want to make use of. We can bring Jordan Phillips back to be that dependable, floor setting, if we have to play him, he won't kill us type role. And he's not suspended 6 weeks. Now, admittedly, I don't think any of these choices really make a ton of sense, which is why I kind of land on what the heck is Jordan Phillips doing here. But of the choices that don't really make sense, replacing Larry Ogunjobi to me is the one that makes the most sense. But let's also not discount the idea that Jordan Phillips might just be here to be on the practice squad. Now, he wasn't in anyone else's camp at 32 years old. Knowing Jordan Phillips, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't want to be in a camp, even if it meant not getting paid for a month. There are a lot of veterans who are like that. The camp, even though camp is way easier and way gentler on the body than it was 20 years ago, there are still a number of veterans that say, the heck with that, I'm going to extend my summer a month. And Jordan Phillips very likely falls into this category. It would not be impossible for him to say, well, I haven't been in a camp. No other team has called me. He said last year at one point that the only team he wanted to play for this year was the Bills anyway. It was either that or retirement. So if the Bills want to call and put him on the practice squad, I could see that happening. Phillips at least would be getting paid $13,000 a week. It's about, 400, maybe a little more than that. Make a little less than $500,000 for the year. Sit around on the practice squad, wear his puffy jackets, be a great vibes guy in the locker room and enjoy himself. Hang out with guys that he likes. And if the Bills need him to play, he plays. Now, there was a report out there from Ryan Talbot, New York Upstate, who said that Jordan Phillips was being signed to the 53-man roster and not to the practice squad. And I do believe technically there is no practice squad right now. So for him to have a nameplate already, and that's what the picture that Phillips posted, probably means he's got to be on the 53-man roster or what is it currently a 90-man roster until tomorrow's cutdown day in the afternoon at some point. Now, you could put him on the 90-man and then cut him and then bring him back to the practice squad. It seems like a silly thing to do if you just want him for the practice squad, you can just sign him on Wednesday and skip the whole rigmarole of going through we've got to cut him and then bring him back. So I think more likely than not, he's on the 53-man roster.
Endgame with Thad Brown, streaming exclusively on Rochester First.